The most dangerous tool in the history of college football is counting out a team that we know is up to the challenge. We all did. Literally all of us did. And now Georgia gets to go ahead and reap the benefits. Down in Austin, a 30-15 win over the Longhorns, and we got a lot to discuss. Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered Postgame Show. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson, breaking everything that we saw at DKR as the number one Longhorns go down. The Devil did not go down to Georgia, but the Dogs went down to Austin, and they're headed back to Georgia with the W, and probably now completely changing up more of what is going to be the college football playoff in the SEC. But real quickly, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below because we're talking college football every single day on this channel. Hit that ring notification. That way you don't miss a single live stream. Sunday Fun Day, Dave Talks Ball, every single scenario under the sun of what you want to see. Make sure that also you download the podcast version of the show, wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on all the social channels. That way you keep up to date with everything that we got on behind closed doors at SEC Unfiltered. Follow Dave at Mach 10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, the official sponsor of the SEC Unfiltered Tour. Go to prizepicks.com. Use that promo code SECU at sign up to get a $50 instant play with your first $55 lineup. So, you believe that Carson Beck is going to hit the over on his passing totals in 2 weeks when they take on Florida down and get Jacksonville. If you think that Quinn Ewers is going to hit his under moving forward, if you think that the passing attack of Texas is going to be kind of anemic, whatever you see fit, make sure that you go to prizepicks.com, use that promo code SECU at sign up, $50 instant play with your first $5 lineup. Dave, just a game to where at the end of the day, we realize, you know what? This is the Georgia we knew. This is the Georgia that has always been there. This is the Georgia to where when we talk about a team that can win a national title, can win an SEC championship, can have that first round bye, when things are clicking, that is the standard of the SEC. It wasn't a perfect performance by any means whatsoever from Carson Beck. He stepped up when he had to. The run game stepped up when it had to. The defense balled the hell out the way that we knew it could. And now, again, this is what Georgia football is all about. We all picked it wrong, every single one of us, and I mean everyone in the media, so everyone is wrong today. But the reason we're wrong is because of we didn't think that that was possible. Georgia just said, okay, bet.
Well, I think some of it's a combination of a bunch of things. I still think they have some holes back there, but again, this is the healthiest they've been. This is the healthiest they've been all year in the defensive front. Michael Williams finally in a money game stepped up and performed up to standard.
Yep.
I mean, ended up having, what do you have, three sacks, and I think Jalen Walker had about 5.
Jalen had, I think, 5 tackles for losses, including sacks.
Yeah. I mean, those two dudes made big-time money today. I mean, here it is. Jalen Walker, 8 solo tackles, 3 sacks. TFL's a fumble recovery. And then Michael Williams, 1 TFL, 2 sacks, and 3 tackles in total. I mean, just overall, that was the defensive front. Even Chaz Chambliss got in there that we had been waiting to see. Again, some of it injuries. I think it's why a lot of us went and picked Alabama to beat Georgia early in the year, was kind of because Georgia was beat up. And I thought Georgia was coming in a little more beat up in this game, but I think some guys were a little more healthier. I mean, Kirby mentioned going into the week, they didn't practice with pads on Thursday. He felt they needed an extra day to kind of just go in jerseys and shorts and just kind of make, hey, I know this isn't what we normally do. We're one of the few teams in the country that goes full pads on Thursdays. It's not just a walkthrough. Those are the kind of decisions that makes Georgia. Again, have not played their best game all year. And this was it tonight. Again, like you said, Cole, I still think there's some things you got to fix a little bit, but dominant defensive performance, just a week after you gave up 31 points to Mississippi State. So it just shows you once they get healthy, if they can stay healthy, Georgia's ceiling through the roof. They're as good as anybody if they play that defensively.
The other part that's really important is that we saw a version of Georgia that kind of has been laying dormant for a while that now is going to have to be the standard. They get healthy. When they are healthy, look at what they're able to do. Now the season kind of resets. We get to control our path to Atlanta. We get to control our path to the college football playoff. We get to be in control. Now, I agree with you, and I think that it was really important. I believe that this was going to be a game for Georgia to win. I think all of us agreed. Carson Beck had to have a performance of a lifetime, had to get that signature victory. He did not. Not even remotely. 3 interceptions
Mhm.
on the day. He had a couple of really, really just bad passes. He averaged like 4.3 yards per play, 41 pass attempts. But what I can say is there were multiple times that he did step up and at least deliver clean passes to get the run game going, to help out with Trevor Etienne, to help out with Nate Frazier, who again averaged 3.8 yards per play. Etienne has 3 rushing touchdowns. That really was the difference maker in this. So it wasn't a bet game to where he had to have that signature win. Again, this is a team that really was a 4-quarter consistent. Everyone does their job at certain times. I'm not going to hold it against him. What I will say, though, is that if Carson Beck wants to be able to finally get us to talk about him in such a prominent light, you can't be having these type of turnovers. You can't be distressing your run game. But again, he did have some plays that kept this offense moving and eventually did set up the Trevor Etienne touchdown. So in that sense, that's the positive that you can take away from Carson Beck's game. But if anybody is saying, look at Carson Beck getting that massive win, he didn't get the win. No, what he did was he didn't do enough to where it cost them the win. That is what I was saying.
Yeah, this was a total Glenn Schumann preparation game, disguising a bunch of blitzes. Hell, the guy had a baby this week. So
Yeah.
hell of a week. Congrats to him, first of all. Hell of a week for the Schumann family. One of their best, that's their best scripted games they've had in a couple years, in my opinion. That's a team that's won a national championship in 2022. That was impressive. They made Quinn Ewers look JV tonight. I mean, Quinn Ewers looked like he had deer in headlights, wanted no part of it. Tip of the cap to Glenn Schumann, and that was phenomenal. Thought a little bit in the second half, Carson, again, to your point, Cole, Carson Beck, Mike Bobo, just, what are you doing, dude? Sometimes these college coaches, you're up like 15 late in the third, and you get the ball back and throw it 3 straight times. It's like, what are we doing, guys? The clock's our friend. What do you do? This is how you allow them to cut it to 8 and get a chance to win the game. But no, overall, though, like you said, Cole, 100%. Anybody saying that's the one Carson Beck can really go hang his hat on right there. It's like, no, great win. He didn't lose in the game, but he wasn't great either. That's a total front 7 win.
The other part that I thought was really important was, for a while, I don't know if people truly got, when we were talking so highly about Trevor Etienne this offseason, what he meant to this team fully healthy. That's what he means to this team. That's why I thought that this was the best running back to come through since DeAndre Swift. Because of performances like the one you saw tonight, where he's averaging over 4.5 yards per play, where he's finding his way to the end zone, where he's picking up first downs like no one's business, where he is capitalizing, he is putting the team on his back, he's putting up 21 points alone. That is why you brought him in. This is why I felt so confident in Georgia this year that they would lose a game. I didn't know where it was going to happen. Maybe it was going to be to Ole Miss. Maybe it was going to be to Alabama. Maybe it was going to be to Texas. But when you needed a big-time performance, you called on number one delivered. This was one of those games where you felt like that the rushing attack really hasn't been there for the last few weeks. Carson Beck did not look clean from the very beginning. I mean, you had a couple of drop passes. You had the big-time interception on the opening drive. Like, all of that to say, this was a game to where it could have gotten out of control completely. What does Kirby Smart do? He goes right back to the well that has always been the bread and butter of this team. We got a run game. Let's go ahead and utilize it. And they have it with a guy in Trevor Etienne. You get Nate Frazier healthy. You get Nate Frazier moving and grooving as the number 2 dude. Ultimately, that is going to be a key point for this organization, for this roster moving forward.
Yeah, not a complete game. How I just saw Carson Beck when I was reading the post-game comics say this wasn't a complete game. We can be much better. He's right, which is kind of scary too. But again, we talked about it in the league a little bit. Every week, I feel like we keep being, everybody hadn't shown their bad game yet, everybody's played a bad game besides. Now we can check every damn team in the league.
Yeah. And even LSU, you can count as not playing a bad game because of, they haven't in conference play, but they have played a bad game.
Yeah.
And they've shown you. So that's the thing. Same with Texas A&M. Dave, when we look now at Georgia, defensively, once again, the standard of college football. And that has been death taxes and really reality in Athens for 7 years now. Since his second season, defense has been the backbone of this team. It stepped up. Jalen Walker looked phenomenal tonight. TJ Allen had a couple of big-time plays. You felt really good about Small Munden. I mean, like, everyone really kind of had the game. Michael Williams.
No, I think Janelle, I was on his ass all week. I just tweeted about it. I was on his ass all week, and I went back and watched the play at the very end of Janelle Aguaro, the nickel, who has struggled all year, played his best game of the year.
And then unfortunately he got what's it called? He got targeting
Ejected,
call.
yeah, for targeting. No, he played his best game outside of the targeting call, which I thought was kind of a soft target.
But again,
call.
everyone
that was
stepped
his
up.
Best, that was his best game of the year, and he has played bad all year.
I thought Jalen Walker, again, the performance that you really need to see from a dude that is supposed to be kind of like that next man up mentality type player that he has been. I think that Michael Williams, again, it's a money game for him. He earned himself a ton for the pressure rates. I thought the way that they were able to kind of make Texas's offensive line look pedestrian and frankly, Big 12-ish is the best way to put it. And it's an insult, and it should be an insult because it did not look good at all in this game. Not even a little bit. There were so many times where they were just getting bulldozed back. That, to me, as good as it was when it comes to just the style of athletes that you have on the team, that is a great clinic when it comes to coaching. That is something that Glenn Schumann, that's something that Kirby Smart has been dialing up. The delayed blitzes, the pressure rates, the ability to be able to have the good stunt formations, all of that, the bulldozing bruiserness that was that front seven, that truly was the difference in this game because of, again, for the offense, it took a while for them to start gaining that momentum, start to kind of find that identity. The defense gave them as many opportunities as possible to score and strike.
No, 100%. No, 100% agree with you on that. I thought I was looking at something else here, Go. Another thing, Georgia, a bunch of drops. I need to clean that up. Too.
The opening drive. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. Tight end receivers were not helping out at all.
The first two drives, the interception, bad drops leading up to it, and then the opening drive. Again, multiple drops. And it was so many players. It wasn't just like an Oscar Delp getting a couple drops. No, it was Dominic Love getting a drop.
Humphrey had a big drop.
Yeah, Humphrey had a big drop. Arian Smith had a big drop. I mean, like everyone had a play to where it's like, okay, I contributed in why we struggled at times. I mean, think about this. There were seven guys with multiple targets in this game, and there were only a handful of players that have more than 3 catches. Like that's when you realize drops, errant passes, all of that aside, it's a problem that needs to be corrected. And again, when you say, and you hear Kirby Smart afterwards talk about how even this station didn't pick us, this broadcasting network didn't give us a shot, nobody gave us a chance, but it was a 4-quarter game and we won on offense, defense, and special teams. They really did. Like honestly, like 100%. They won because they played a complete game, offense, defense, and special teams. When someone needed to step up on the offense, they did. When someone on the defense needed to step up, they did. When special teams needed to step up, it did. That was why they walked away a winner in Austin tonight.
Yep. Yep. Georgia back in the shoot. You got to feel really good about them right now. So they totally flipped the switch this way, going off last week, which I mean, myself, everybody was down on them after even up 31 points to Mississippi State.
Let's talk about Texas now that we know that they've had their game. They've had their game where they have looked pedestrian and they have looked vulnerable. Now we get to have that conversation of, okay, well, what is Texas? Because on one hand, there will be the crowd that comes out and says, overrated, fraud. And we've kind of been here before where, yeah, I get it. Texas was going to be susceptible to a loss at some point. Maybe it would have been in a trap moment, say against a Florida, say against an Arkansas on the road, but instead it's at Georgia. Or is this a moment where, again, we kind of are more so saying, guys, this is Georgia. Like, this is still the standard of the SEC. This is still what we know to be arguably the most complete team in college football when all things are humming. This is still the program with the best coach who, if you give him an extra week to game plan, and more importantly, if you allow him to get into his breadbasket and you allow him to get into his own element, he's going to make you pay. What version of Texas are we or should we be talking about at this point?
I mean, think back on the Texas game. I mean, it was a lot. Again, Quinn Ewers just kind of looked out of it the whole night. But again, it wasn't all on him. I mean, I didn't think Banks was great. I didn't think Williams, either tackle, were great today. I mean, what Georgia did defensively in the front seven tells you that. They got whipped up front. Thought Sark's play calling, just running right with Trey Wisner, just running right into the teeth of the Georgia defense when they were playing well, been as healthy as they've been. Well, that was maybe a choice. I just think across the board offensively for Texas, it wasn't really their night. Georgia had their best game plan they've had probably, in 2 years. I think they would probably admit that, 2 to 3. Probably since they played Tennessee in 22 at home. It was probably their best defensive game plan because even against Ohio State in the playoffs, Ohio State put points up on them. But, like, this was their best plan they've had. You got to tip the cap to Georgia. You just got whipped tonight on offense. I didn't think the defense for Texas played bad, dude. I think I saw something. They only had 3 series where Georgia put up, like, over 35 yards on them or something in it. It was something like outside of the short fields and stuff like that. Georgia, I didn't really think Texas's defense was really that. Maybe, when I go back and watch it, maybe I'll feel differently. But just in this an instant reaction going to me, I just don't feel like they played bad. The Texas defense, I thought the offense just was not consistent. The offensive line couldn't protect whether it was Ewers or Manning in the game. So I think that's where it starts up front. Is you got whipped on the offensive line, and sometimes you just got to tip the cap to the opposing side. I mean, they just played their tails off and had a hell of a game plan.
Dave, there were 2 drives that they gave up over 35 yards. Defensive.
Yeah, I knew. I saw somebody tweet
2 drives.
2 or 3.
And one was on the interception at the opening part of the game that was picked off by Jahdae Barron. And the other one was the touchdown drive, whichever ETN scoring. That was it. And one was a 52-yard drive, and the other one was an 89-yard drive. And the 52-yard drive was the interception. Texas' defense, it gave up some explosive plays. It allowed some wide receivers to find ways to get open. It allowed Trevor Etienne, Nate Frazier to kind of move the sticks, keep momentum pushing forward. It did, like it did do that. But at the same time, it also gave an opportunity for Texas offense to strike. Texas offense just never got comfortable. And I think it's weird to have this conversation because of hindsight's 2020. Maybe it needed to happen this way because of, again, you allow somebody to hit the reset button. But I feel a little uncomfortable now having to talk about what is going to be Quinn Ewers versus Arch Manning. Because if Quinn comes in, he does not look good. He has struggle after struggle after struggle. Big time, you had the fumble, scoring drive. Here comes Arch. Here comes this offense. Well, now it feels like every single game, and this is just me internally saying, okay, well, if I'm Quinn and I feel like that I'm not doing my job to an exact team, they're going to bring in Arch, and now I'm in jeopardy of losing my job. And I don't like that. And it's going to put a damper. I mean, it's going to put a derailment inside the locker room. And that's the thing that does bother me just a little bit. Do you think it was okay to go to Arch Manning? Because you had to switch something up. Something had to get done.
Do you think Quinn's still a little hurt? I mean, dude, he looked
He's
just
not fully healthy. He's not fully there.
Yeah, like the middle intermediate throws that he's usually pretty spot on with, he was just off. And again, I said I thought Williams and Banks didn't play well tonight at either tackle spot. But there were plays even when he had 3 to 4 seconds, and it was like his internal shot clock was going off, and it was just like, dude, and they're showing him close look in, getting plays, and he just kind of just looks like dead-eyed. It's kind of just like, dude, it's just not there. I don't blame him for making the move. But you're right, Cole. That's going to be a conversation throughout the rest of the year, right? And whoever starts isn't playing well.
The problem is also it's going to be a conversation every single week going into practice. Hey, are you planning on starting Quinn? Hey, are you planning on starting Quinn? And so now we're going from, hey, this is a team that feels like it is a complete roster. They have the depth. They have the stable offensive line. They have the weaponry. They have the personnel defensively. And they have 2 quarterbacks that both can win you games to now, okay, well, if Quinn's not doing this, what is the leash that you're going to put on him before we call to Arch Manning? And what if Arch starts struggling? Are you going to go back to Quinn? And that's not sustainable if you want to win a championship. Like for Texas, the thing about them that stands out so extremely well, and every game before this one has been, hey, they can win in multiple facets. They can win on the ground. They can win with their defense bailing them out of trouble. They can win with the passing attack. But now the question turns to, well, can they win with Quinn? Can they win with Arch? Can they not win with either? Or do we have to go with a certain number of plays that are designed for this? And the problem is that sports talk radio shows, people like you and I that work in this industry, we're going to have to bring it up in conversation, even if we don't want to. Because the problem is that now you opened up that door. It was a big-time game. It was on the biggest stage. Everyone was paying attention to you. Everyone saw the lights of Austin at its brightest. This was a moment for Texas to make a statement in the SEC. Quinn did not deliver. Arch did not deliver. But now it feels like, well, we still have a shot to go to the playoff. We still have the best ahead of us. Like, people out there that are saying, well, is Texas going to miss the playoff? Stop it. Like, stop it. It's one game. It was a 15-point loss to arguably one of the best teams in the country, one of the more consistent programs that we have seen for the last, 6-7 years. Nobody should be doubting Texas about being a playoff team because of the way they play tonight. What you should wonder is, are we going to have to deal with every single week Quinn has an errant pass and Twitter starts riling on up, let's go to Arch Manning? That's where the problem resides. And that creates issues inside the locker room. I mean, Dave, you've worked in personnel. You know this better than I do. When there is a quarterback controversy going on and when those conversations are going on inside the locker room, does it not do damage as much as it does good for the organization, the program?
Yeah, because naturally, the rest of the guys on the team gravitate towards half and one gravitate towards another half, or maybe it's 70-30. But definitely the team, they're human beings too. I mean, it's just like me and you. We gravitate towards certain people in certain situations. They're in a college locker room with 125, 130 kids too. Yeah, some of them are going to have the team. You're right. It's a conversation heading into each week that'll be interesting. Cole, who do you think is who do you think gives Texas their highest ceiling?
I still think Quinn, because of Quinn's played in more games. And to
bigger
me, that's all I care
games,
about.
yeah.
He's played in bigger games. He's been to the playoff. He's earned the right to lead this team further. But again, you are not allowed to start losing and playing close calls. Next week, you're traveling to Nashville. Here's the deal. Vanderbilt, as good as a story as they are, had its fair share of struggles today against Ball State. I love Vanderbilt. I love Diego Pavia. I know that there is a clear separation between the conferences, between the teams and the tiers of where they reside. You should be able to capitalize there. But the question is going to be, well, what happens if Quinn throws an early pick? Are we now going to go to Arch? And what if Arch starts the rest of the game and then you go play against Florida in a few weeks? Well, what happens now? Are we going to go back to Arch? Like, that's where the conversation goes. And because you opened up that box and all these questions now, it is going to be a conversation starter and people are not going to be able to hold on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, look, Quinn Ewers has played in playoff games, conference championships. You're right. When he's playing his best and it is on for him, he's as good as anybody in the country at the college level. You're right. I agree with you. You got to stick with him as of right now. I know it's not been great the last 2 weeks, too. If you can go back to the Cotton Bowl against Oklahoma, it wasn't like he played great, but it was his first game back. But no, I'm with you. He still looks a little banged up to me. I know nothing. It's just looking at him.
He still found the end zone twice. He still found a way to connect with Jaden Blue for a touchdown. He still found a way to connect with Isaiah Bond for a touchdown. He still found a way to make sure he got the right read off to Matthew Golden for the pass interference at the back of the end zone. That way it could set up for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like, he's like hitting the reset button going into halftime for him to come back out and lead that drive. That was enough to give you the confidence. Okay, well, now we have momentum. Now we know that he can be our dude. Let's go ahead and ride the hot hand. Yeah. And I'm glad that after the second touchdown, and then you watch as there's all the moments that goes on where it's 3 and outs, where the pressure rate is coming up. Michael Williams and you're watching as Jalen Walker are dominating at that point. You're not saying, okay, well, Arch gave us a little bit of life. He gave us a little bit of momentum. His mobility, his athleticism, it really can pick up a little bit of steam. Let's go back to him for a minute. No, you just said we're riding it out with Quinn, win or lose, regardless of what it is. That, to me, is what I think you need to see from Steve Sarkisian. But still, unfortunately, you allowed that narrative to begin by going to him in the first half.
I mean, it wasn't just all Quinn. It wasn't just all Quinn Ewers too. We talked about it. Williams and Banks were really bad at the tackle spots tonight, and I thought Sark went a little too tendency heavy in the first half. Made some adjustments in the second half. You could tell they came out more on fire. Just a little too late. I mean, Georgia found that out in Tuscaloosa. I mean, I know they ultimately ended up taking the lead. Texas didn't deny it, but when you get, Cole, you get yourself in that big of a hole, dude, against another really good football team. Everything almost has to go your way in the second half. Literally, every penalty, every yard you gain. But again, I think it's a compliment to Texas. Is kind of, we throw the culture word around a lot too much, but I think it's a compliment to them, to Sark's program. Again, I'm not panicking on Texas yet. Again, I picked him to win by double digits, if I'm being honest. I'm not done with Texas yet. Again, if the defense would have went out and got lit up or something, yeah, I'd be a little bit like, huh. But now, like you said, you got to go back to the drawing board. I don't think the tackles will play as bad as they did before. Sark, I think, is going to break some tendencies. This may work out. Again, this is going to show you your flaws before you get deeper in the year, deeper and more meaningful games. Or, as you know, Cole, you get into playoff time. You don't get these get-out-of-jail-free cards. Your season's over. So, again, not all lost. You're right. The thing they're going to have to deal with, though, is that conversation on every radio host, social media, internally inside the locker room, as you brought up, that Manning Ewers thing. They got to be able to manage it. That's another thing that's going to have to come across Sark's desk, which it already has because we've talked about even in SEC Media Days. But now that games are being played, it's a real conversation. Again, I'm not done with Texas yet. I still think they'll make the playoffs.
Whoever thinks that Texas is out, like what we're really saying at this point is we're justifying Kirby's comments after the game, believing that nobody thought they were legit. Because of anybody who says, oh, well, we can't believe in Texas anymore because they lost to Georgia. What are you saying about Georgia at this point? Georgia had its moments. Georgia nearly pulled off the biggest comeback in SEC football history on the road in Bryant-Denny Stadium, a place where he has struggled against a team that we're starting to realize it's not a Nick Saban problem. It's an Alabama problem. And yet they nearly were able to get the comeback. They threw 3 interceptions and then a 4th one late in the game. Yet here we are now talking about them as probably the 2nd or 3rd best team in college football. So if you're doubting Texas, you're doubting Georgia, you're doubting basically the entire SEC. So I find that absolutely egregious. Dave, where do we place Georgia right now going into next week? Because I think that's very fair. There's an undefeated team. Oregon won. Oregon came out. They dismantled Purdue on the road, 35-0. That's probably number 1. 2 through 4 is going to be a really, really, really interesting conversation.
Could it be 3 Big Ten teams in a row, 1, 2, and 3?
Or do you think that Georgia kind of gets that break? Because again,
Cole, who would you say? Who you think is the best win in college football right now?
I think it's Georgia.
I would agree.
I think it's Georgia. And if it's not Georgia, it's Alabama over Georgia. And Alabama has 2 losses. And again, the other part is like, think about this. The way that Alabama played today with the careless penalties, the way that Alabama looked last week against South Carolina, the way that Alabama looked against Vanderbilt, that is why we can say, okay, they have some problems that may not be corrected to where their hopes of making the college football are legit. Tennessee, same thing. They have some problems to where the hopes of them making the college football are still legit. Texas just lost to a team that kind of found its mojo again at the right time, got fully healthy outside of Tate Ratledge, and really, even with limited reps from certain players like Michael Williams, they made the most of them. So it's like, to me, Georgia has probably the most convincing win. I think Oregon's right up there. And so the question would be, if they have the 2 most convincing wins, wouldn't they be ranked 1 and 2?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think you got to put Oregon 1. I'd probably keep that right there just because they're undefeated. I'd go Georgia 2.
You would go, and I think that
the best win. I think it's got to count for something. I mean, I know Penn State hadn't lost yet, but I mean, I think Georgia. I think the better win, and then your loss is on the road in Alabama, which isn't a bad loss.
No,
I think gives you the nod.
And it was a 4-point loss to Alabama.
Yeah.
So again,
no, 7. Remember, Bama went for 2.
7. You're right. No, but your argument would be you nearly came back after being down 28-0. Is the argument between Ohio State, because if they lost by 1 point on the road to what is going to be the number 1 team.
But I think Georgia's win, having the better win, gives them the nod, in my opinion.
But okay, let me ask you, does that coincide? Does that over expand against Penn State? Which again, what is their defining win of the season? Is it West Virginia? And then now every game that is played by USC, it's starting to look worse because if they just lost again today to Maryland. So yeah, they're undefeated, but like Indiana's undefeated, Miami's undefeated. We're not having this conversation at all that they belong inside the top 5.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, I'm just big. I like measuring wins, so that's why I give Georgia that nod right there.
Where do you drop out? Where do you drop Texas?
I think you could drop Texas a little bit because they don't have that many quality wins. Again, I mean, this is all going to work itself out at some point, but I don't know. I think like you could drop Texas to
what's the
six or seven, and I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Would you drop them below? Okay, let me ask. Would you drop them below Clemson, and would you drop them below Miami?
Yeah, I dropped them below Miami, not Clemson.
So probably at that point you would say 6.
Correct. Yeah, so I say 6 or 7. I don't have a problem with.
I think Clemson has looked better. Clemson has looked better than advertised
each week. Yeah,
their loss to Georgia no longer is detrimental because if they're playing up to a certain standard, and Georgia also has shown some weaknesses. I personally would still say I have them above Miami. Honestly, right now, I'm not going to do it because of, again, Miami's undefeated. But I think that Clemson's playing better football than Miami at this point. So if Clemson's playing better football than Miami, I would have Texas above Clemson. So I'd have them above Miami as well. I think that if you were asking me, where would I place Texas? They would be in the 5 spot. I have no problem putting them at 5. It's a 15-point loss to arguably one of the best defenses in college football, one of the best schemers in college football, who also has a running mate. Like you and I have talked about the relationship between Zach Alley and Brent Venables, how that's like a Batman and Robin. That's Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart. They see eye to eye. They speak the same language. They have their own alien dialect and X's and O's talk that we know nothing about. Like that to me is not as bad as a loss. Do you feel like that there is a marquee win for either Miami or Clemson, the same way that we talk about Texas? I think that really settles the argument here.
So ask that one again.
Do you feel like that there is a marquee win for either Miami or Clemson to where that would surpass Texas's win? Because you're right. Right now, it does.
Louisville is better than probably anything Texas has.
I think it's the same.
Look, what's Texas's best win?
Probably Michigan.
Or ULM.
I would say probably Michigan because it was on the road and they handle business. That to me feels like their best win.
Yeah, and I think Louisville is probably better than Michigan, if I had to say. And that was on the road.
What about?
I'd probably say Miami has the better wins. At Florida is probably a better win. I think Florida and Michigan.
I think at Florida is actually a better win than at Louisville. I think personally.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you got 2 that are better than at Michigan right now.
Fair enough. Real fast before we get on out of here tonight.
Hey, Cole, how about that? Hey, real quick before we get out of here. How about that? How about the strangest we were about to get on for Arkansas LSU review. How about the strangest overturned pass interference call ever? Oh
my God. No. Sorry about that. My camera's been acting up today. Complain. Just complain all you want. Throw balls on the field. Congratulations. You got a call turned over in your favor.
If it's a bad enough call, we'll overturn it.
If it's a bad enough call, we're just going to go ahead.
And you show it in your Jumbotron.
But think about this for a second. What a beautiful play by by the fans to now throw trash on the field for a PI that was clearly, which by the way, I'm not going to sit here and argue.
That
was a pathetically
bad
executed excuse.
If anything, Georgia's receiver, who I forgot who it was, made
the Arian Smith
contact. Yeah, Arian Smith at the top of the route made the initial contact.
But like Carson Beck throws it right into the arms of Ja'Day Barrett. Yeah. Like it's nowhere near Arian Smith to begin with. To where
it was a bad call.
But like, imagine this for a minute. When you throw them on the television, when you throw all the trash onto the field, you have Steve Sarkisian running over it. Guys, stop. I'm begging you, stop.
Cheerleaders on the field.
You have cheerleaders coming on and being like, here, we're going to help out. And now the refs are turning and looking at the television going, oh my God. Like, they're being children and they have a right to be screaming and hooping and hollering. Like they're not wrong. They're going about it wrong.
What do you think happens if Texas comes back and magically won that game and that was the play, just kind of flipped it around? They got it right, but it was just like, well, dude, I've never even heard of that being reversed like that. That call.
Kirby's losing his mind. He's 100% losing his mind. Before we get on out of here, there's 2 more things I want to talk about. Kirby calls out Kirk Herbstreit. He calls out Chris Fowler. He calls out ESPN. Do you have a problem with it?
Dude, I think he promotes just like Russian propaganda, like Vladimir Putin in there to some extent. I mean, he had him 2 years ago believing they were 7-5, man. It's like they're just locked in their own chamber. And again, I mean, everybody, me, you, and Chris even included, picked Texas to win the football game.
Everybody picked Texas to win the football game.
So I get it. He's fired up after a big win. He was probably a little nervous in the second half, emotions flying, just kind of like, dude, we can't blow this. Come on, dude, we can't be on this. And then when they finally won, he lets it all out. The emotions just roll in, and he's just like, y'all all doubted us. Every one of you did. And it's like, you're right. I mean, I may not go about that route, but I mean, I guess I don't have a problem with it.
I think my big takeaway is the way that the team played in the second half. They didn't allow the moment to get too big. They didn't allow the lead to be spattered. They did not allow Texas to pull within, I would say, fair striking distance. There was still a clear separation of where you were, how you jumped out, how you capitalized on turnovers. And because of we all undersold Georgia, I don't have a problem with it because again, you stepped on up. You didn't talk crap before the game. You didn't say, we have all these players believing that. It's like you said, I'll wait until the clock strikes 0. I'll wait for the moment to come ahead and be over. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop down the hammer. I have no problem with that. I don't. It's like, remember what was it last year? Ryan Day calls out Lou Holtz and we're all like, dude, Lou Holtz is asleep. He is asleep right now. There is no reason you want to be talking. Wake his ass up. Yeah, it's like, okay, I promise you, Lee Corso is sleeping right now. You do not need to go ahead and wake his ass up to go ahead and ask him, hey, why'd you put the helmet on? Why'd you put the head on? Nope, it's all good. We don't need to have that type of conversation. Georgia's schedule for the rest of the year. They're on the bye this week. They'll get Tate Ratledge back fully healthy afterwards. Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee, UMass, Georgia set to close out the year. 5-0? Or do you think that if you had to pick one that would be a trap, which one is it?
I think I had Ole Miss.
Do you wonder at all about the 2 targeting calls in the second half affecting that game down in Jacksonville? Because they're not going to be playing in the first half. And again, I'm not sitting here trying to create arguments or narratives because if I
I think every week in this league, could that game be close? 100%, because they are thin on the back end. They're playing Ja'Cory Thomas with all these ejections. But I'm with you, Cole. They're kind of thin on the back end like everybody else. You're missing 2 guys in the first half. Florida has as much confidence. I mean, they put up 48 tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, they played phenomenal against.
They had a couple pick six. They had a pick 6 by Kermani McLean. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're coming in with as much confidence as they've had in all year. So,
Jaden Ball had 3 rushing touchdowns.
So I expect Florida's best and Billy Napier's best shot here. So yeah, I can see this being a game with as wild as college football and unpredictable as it's been this year, and it's been so week to week.
I agree with you. I think that right now, as much as I want to pick Tennessee as that game, I think it still is Ole Miss. It is a road atmosphere. It is an Ole Miss team that still could end up making the college football play. Here's the good news. If you are an Ole Miss fan watching this bye week, now seeing Georgia win, if you find a way to get that victory, that bodes extremely well in the resume booster for you, especially when it comes to your chance to making the college football playoff. Yeah. Texas final schedule, Vanderbilt, then they have the bye, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, Texas A&M. Is Texas A&M the game that you're circling, or is there another one?
Man, initially you'd want to make a trap game, mate. I mean, it wouldn't shock you 11 if they don't go play well at Arkansas. I don't know if they straight up lose that game, but yes, the toughest game left on the schedule. Yes, definitely at
the A&M game added a little bit more juice tonight, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it certainly, I think, enhanced it. I agree. I would say Arkansas is the one that I'm
from a trap game standpoint,
because it's a road game in a place that the last time you went to, you thought that you were the better team. You were ranked. Arkansas beat the brakes off of you. Arkansas did not have a good offensive performance at all tonight against LSU. But that doesn't mean that they can't find a way to get that mojo back
on that day.
For that day, that early kick, that moment, I agree. But I will say there is a little bit more gusto added on in when it comes to what is going to be the Lone Star Showdown on Thanksgiving weekend. That's for damn sure.
Yep.
Georgia comes out on top. Texas, well, they're here. What version is here next week when they travel to Vanderbilt? Like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on all the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow Dave at Mock 10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button down below. That way you keep it up to date with everything that we're doing on the channel. Make sure that also you hit that ring notification. Sunday Fun Day tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. Make sure that you also are keeping up with everything that we're doing here by hitting that ring notification. And for Dave Shumate, I am Cole Thompson. Dogs dominate Texas. Well, everyone gets one. Everyone gets one. Appreciate you. Take care.